Lore of League of Legends, The Weakest Heart, Chapter 8. I stood and looked out over the balcony of my brother's study. A chill breeze ruffled the pennants that hung from the eaves of the house. The entire city stretched out before me. The doors to the study opened, and for a moment I could hear the preparations for tomorrow's influx of apprentices. In those voices and quickened steps, I heard the years behind me unfolding, all of them too similar to separate, all of them save two. The one where a handsome man from the sands danced away with my heart, and the one where I demanded the same man carve it away. How often had Hakim come here with me between those two slivers of time? The breeze that teased the pennants would catch the curls of his hair as he stood on the balcony. Such promise, he would say as his eyes danced over the glittering towers of the city, the glow of Zorn lighting the buildings from below. Such a delicate machine, all of these parts working together. I told him what my father told me, that this was the promise of progress, the promise of Piltover. It moved our city forward, but I cautioned one ill-shaped gear could threaten it all. One cog that rejected its role could destroy the entire machine. Steven's chair creaked along the carpet. My fingers ached for the curls of Hakim's hair or even the solace of the chaplet's polished glass in my pocket. Instead, I coiled Aviat's whip into tighter circles in my hands. Hakim so wanted to draw me out of this darkness, only realizing too late that my work, my duty to my family, was something I could no more cut away than my own shadow. Camille? I said nothing, unable to tear my eyes from the fragile view and even more fragile thoughts of the past. The clockwork mechanism ticked and the wheels of Steven's chair brought him up behind me. "You've returned," he said. "Aviat?" I tossed Aviat's whip on the woolen blanket laid over his lap. "I see. She served her purpose," I said. "That being? For having sat so long in that chair, my brother was an artful dancer. He plucked at the wire of the whip." "To remind me of mine," I said. "Your purpose?" Steven's initial nervousness slipped into agitation. He knew he would die tonight. He had been caught, and he couldn't run, especially from me. His only consolation was to try and wound me just as grievously before his time expired. Bound as he was by his frailty, the only weapons left to him were words. "Your duty is to me," he said, "just as it was to our father." Duty? My father? The right words could cut more deeply than a knife. "You are here to serve me," he growled. "No. I swore to serve this house." The oath I had taken pricked fresh in my mind, the oath of all intelligences. I repeated it now without effort or remorse. To this house I will be true and faithful, putting its needs before my own. To this I will commit mind, body and heart. They were the same words I told Hakim the night I had ended things between us. I could not be his, for I had promised myself to another. That duty of intelligencer was meant to be mine. Steven's voice wrenched me back to the present. He gripped the arms of his chair until his knuckles whitened. "You swore an oath to our father, and what did you do? He died because you were not strong enough, and then you nearly deserted this house. For what? Love? Attention? Where was your duty then?" He spat the words in the space between us. These spider veins, this blight. I had let it fester far too long. What kindness had I shown this house in ignoring his madness? "I cut out my heart for the family, for you, Steven," I said. "I have given all that I am. After all these years, can you say the same?" Steven sputtered like a wet spark, desperately trying to flare to life, but knowing there was little left to catch fire. "Father just gave this to you, but I was the one who spent my entire life proving to him I deserved it," he said. Disgust waited on his words. My brother's anger ran faster, the toxicity poisoning the air like a chem spill. "You may see me as your betrayer, but you are the one responsible, sister. If you could be trusted to make the right decisions, I would not have to step in." I had let him become this monster. I tolerated his grim plots and motivations all because I was unwilling to face a future without him, a future where no one remembered the woman I was. If I had been stronger in my resolve, I could have ended this years before. I had chiseled away parts of myself, but in all that time, I never had the courage to cut away the piece I knew would blacken our house. That night, I would have run away with Hakim if you had not made the effort to remind me of my duty, I said. He had come to me, bloody and broken, forcing me to confront a reality where I had abandoned my charge. Even when I discovered the truth years later that he had been behind his own attack, I had been relieved. On the brink of a decision clouded by sentiment, my brother had given me the hard push that let me separate honour from emotion. I knew that, without it, I might have given up who I was meant to be. It was his dark encouragement that let me take on fully the mantle I wore now. I moved toward him and let my fingers rest on his shoulder. I could feel his aged bones beneath the rich silken parchment skin. The vibrations in my chest built. Steven looked up at me, the blue in his eyes hardening like chips of broken glass as the energy around my augmentation grew. You have always been my responsibility, brother. The chill in the air entered my words. Steven, I will fail you no longer. I could feel the charge electrifying the hair at the back of my neck. I let my hand drift from his shoulder to the edge of his face. The boyish lock of hair that fell over his temple had thinned and disappeared years ago. The spark arced through my fingertips and enveloped Steven. It didn't take much to push his heart over the edge. The atrophied muscle that drove my brother to such dark places finally seized in his chest. His eyes closed, and his chin sagged in my hand. The vibration of the crystals in my chest slowed to an even rhythm. I turned back to face the city. Tonight's cold would settle in her metal bones, but tomorrow she would continue to push forward, to pulse with life, to progress. Such a delicate machine.